Okay, folks, I've been owing Ethan Van Sciver a review of his CYBERFROG Bloodhoney book for a while now. Now, I happen to purchase a copy of the Ultimate CYBERFROG Bloodhoney, which contains not only that, but CYBERFROG 1998, The Diary of Heather Swain. I will not be covering CYBERFROG 1998 in this video. I'll save that for another video. But in this particular video, I will be covering parts 2 and 3 of CYBERFROG Bloodhoney. If you want to see my coverage of part 1, do go back and look at my preview review of CYBERFROG Bloodhoney, and that will cover the first 17 pages of the book, which basically gets you up to speed on who CYBERFROG is, how he came to be, who Salamandroid is, how he came to be, how Heather Swain enters the picture, and basically what is CYBERFROG's point, his point being to combat the upcoming Vispes invasion, which will happen at some unspecified point in the future. Now, this is going to be kind of a spoiler review because, I wish it didn't have to be. I would really love to just basically say, here's a few things here and here's a few things there, but there is so much to critique about this comic that I'm going to wind up going through pretty much page by page and showing what I think could have been improved. So starting from the beginning, and I'm not going to show you each page, and Ethan Van Sciver specifically requested that I don't, but I will show you a few pages, here and there, just to try and get across a sense of what I mean, because if you don't see it, you're just not going to be able to understand it. But from the first page, you're looking at a picture of approaching the planet Earth. You got 3 panels approaching the planet Earth, and you've got this dialogue between 2 people, somebody named Betty and the President of the United States. Now, here's a problem, right off the bat. Which president? Because it doesn't say. All it says is Mr. President, and because the book is published in 2021, we have no idea whether this is Donald Trump, Joe Biden. Could be either of them. So, it could be neither of them. It could be, I don't even know if CYBERFROG is set in a world where, all the presidents line up. This could be a fiction, President Donald Duck or something. I don't know if this is a real president or not. So all we know is it's the president of the United States. And he's talking to Betty, basically saying, they're out for my blood. They want my blood. I'm going to bleed on live TV. And this is kind of a veiled reference to the Vispes from a metaphorical standpoint, but is that really what the president's talking about? I don't even know that. I don't know if that's what's happening, because I have no context. I have no reference for it. He could be talking about the Vispes for all I know, because the next page shows the Vispes descending upon Earth. They're basically got a whole bunch of beehive-looking ships that are coming down and floating down towards Earth. And, is the president talking about that? I don't know. He could be just as easily talking about the media. So there's a lot of just confusion in these first couple of pages that could have been shored up just by the fact of, showing us a little bit about, okay, who is the president we're talking about? Give us a panel that shows, you've got 3 panels up and down the page, and all you're doing is approaching Earth. You can do that, and you can also have like 3 panels down the side showing the president of the United States, whichever one he is, preparing for this interview and maybe talking a little bit more with this Betty person about what he's going to be talking about, just so we can understand what it is that's going on. So, from those 2 pages, we pop over to the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, because speaking of just a segue out of nowhere, you've got a couple of people in the Pine Barrens, and now they're talking about how this guy's friends are supposed to meet this couple, this man and a woman, in the Pine Barrens, and he's saying they're going to come, and she's saying, nah, they're not going to come. Like, no, they're going to come. No, yeah, they're not going to come. It's like, okay. And I get that, there's kind of a little bit of metaphor going on here for the sense of the Vispes. You've got this giant threat that's out there. Is the Vispes ever really going to arrive or not? I kind of get that that's the vibe that's being gone for. The problem is that we never even understand why these people are out in the middle of the Pine Barrens to begin with. They're not there to do anything as far as we can tell. I mean, are they there like doing a drug haul? Are they there camping? Are they going to like set off fireworks? What are they going to do? I mean, why is it the friends may or may not come? I mean, what is it about the friends that makes... I mean, it's just... There's no human motivation in this, and I think the reason for that is that these humans just wind up being cannon fodder for the Vizpas. I mean, they just wind up being, a couple of casualties, and that's all that they're there for. But really, these are a couple of people out in the middle of the swamp. Why? Why are they out there? Tell us that. Ugh. So, okay, so at that point, we switch to a view of Chelsyn, who is CyberFrog's mother, and who is his cybernetic upgrader. So basically, anytime CyberFrog needs some sort of cybernetic enhancement, she supplies him with the power and schematics and stuff that he can configure himself into whatever he needs to be in order to beat whatever threat it is that he's facing. So, when the Vizpas descend, it's her job to augment him to the nth degree to make sure that he can take on this entire Vizpas invasion, practically by himself. And Salamandroid is there to be like a buffer to kind of like a tank, take the damage for him, just make sure he survives because he's the one that all of this is going to be relying on. So she's down in the swamp, and it turns out this is something that was not made clear in the part 1 of the book. So I'm glad this is mentioned here, is that Chelsyn is tapped into this interconnected web of all non-human life on the planet so that she's able to sense what the planet overall senses. And what she's sensing right now is abject terror. And so with all of this terror going on, she's basically giving CyberFrog the heads up, stay online. I don't know what's going on yet, but this could be really, really bad. Now, there is a little bit of quibbling I have with how these pages are formatted, because you're looking at... It's actually kind of clever. I'm going to say this is actually kind of clever in that you start off with these pages with a little frog that you then go and lens out on, and then you look at the frog jump into the water, and then it splashes into the water, and then over here, you kind of pick back up with it, and you see some bubbles, and then you see the frog again swimming, and then finally swimming past Chelsyn. That's very clever from an artistic standpoint, but the problem is that it kind of interrupts the dialogue portion. You've got Trick Ron, basically down at the bottom of this page. You've got Chelsyn contacting CyberFrog, and then you've got 2 interrupting panels of swimming frog. Remain online, and then a couple of swimming frog panels. Don't break the momentum like that. It's cute, it's clever, but there's a lot of stuff in here that's going to be cute and clever, and it doesn't need to be there, because you've got to tell the story first and foremost. That's what the art has to do. That's what the words have to do. You have to tell the story above all else. And sometimes you just got to kill your darlings when it comes to the clever little things that you can possibly insert. So contact CyberFrog, and CyberFrog is introduced on this incredibly wasteful 2-page spread. 2-page spread. Now, there's nothing going on in this panel that's deserving of a 2-page spread. It's just, here's CyberFrog. And the dialogue is not anything inspiring. The background is not anything inspiring. There's a gigantic moon up there. I don't know if, the moon in this world is really that gigantic, but oh my God, the moon is like really, that much, if that. And moreover, I feel like I'm getting kicked in the face by CyberFrog. I should not have a reading experience where I feel like I'm getting kicked in the face. And there's a lot of that goes on in this book. It's almost like there are 2, at most 3 lens settings on the work that Ethan Van Sciver does, and it's either jammed right up in your face, or pulled back to the point where you can barely see it, or there's an occasional, middle scene. But oh my God, there's got to be some better way to do this. And besides, this whole big 2-page spread could have been fit on half a page, just one top panel. And then you have a page and a half more for story. Moving on, we finally get to learn that we are in 1998. Great. Now I know that's Bill Clinton who was talking to this Betty person back then. Wasn't Donald Trump, wasn't Joe Biden. It was actually Bill Clinton. What do you know? How was I supposed to know that? But now finally I know, and he's talking about, he's actually, the interview that he's giving to these bloodsuckers in the media, it turns out, is about Monica Lewinsky. It's that famous announcement that he made to the nation where he basically told the nation that he had an affair with Monica Lewinsky and had perjured himself, although he didn't, admit to that, but he totally perjured himself. They should have removed the bastard. So CyberFrog heads back to his home where Heather Swain is there watching the CNN interview with President Clinton, or the announcement by President Clinton. And CyberFrog makes mention of the fact that there is this battery that Chel Sin gave to Heather Swain and CyberFrog to power certain things. And she's using it to power the TV, which is kind of funny. The problem is that we don't see this battery until like a panel later. Basically, you've got the TV, you can see the TV, and you can see her watching the TV, and you can see him up on the roof where he's complaining about the power battery that she's got hooked into the TV in order to power the TV. But the power battery doesn't make an appearance until the next panel, and it's down over here. Now, what's the other problem? His freaking head is breaking the panel boundary here and overlapping the thing that we're really supposed to care about most in this scene, which is this power battery. Because he's just got done complaining about it, you kind of want to give this a full view. You don't want to cover it up like it's something unimportant. So this is one of the things, there's a lot of panel breaking that goes on in this comic. We'll get to some more egregious examples of that later on. But this is one of the egregious examples, is that you've got his head jutting out here and covering up like the main thing that he was talking about in this particular panel. It's like, don't make this important and then cover it up as if it's not. All right, so now he's gorging on chicken. And, at this point I wonder if I'm just starting to nitpick, because he starts off just kind of nibbling on the chicken, and then he just starts dumping the whole bucket in his mouth. And I'm like, do you actually have two feeding speeds when you're gorging on chicken? Do you have just a little, nibble, 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 and then shove it all in your face kind of thing? I don't know that that's really a thing. But the other thing is that here a bone falls out, and it's a bare bone. It's something that somebody's already eaten. Was it in the same bucket as the fresh chicken that's still there? I mean, who throws their bones into the same batch as the fresh chicken? Who does that? I mean, Heather's the one who had to have done that. Nasty girl. Nasty. I mean, that's the thing, is like, wait a minute, are you telling me Heather is just so freaking lazy that she threw a bone with her own saliva like back into the box with the good chicken? I mean, what the hell? Trying to do something like Meg on Family Guy. It's like, oh, you ate the bone with my saliva, CyberFrog. I am in you now. Ugh. So, now we have a picture of Salamandroid crashing into the house, basically poking his head through the wall. And it's done in such a way that it's resting on the seam. So, this is a very difficult thing to interpret, given that I've got a big kind of black line of shadow right down the middle. And that's one of the reasons that I'm like, pages and panels are there for a reason. If you don't need to break a page boundary, if you don't need to break a panel boundary, don't do it. Because you're just making it hard on the reader to figure out what is going on this particular page. I'm not naturally going to look at everything on this page from top to bottom, and then I'm going to be like, oh shit, there's a whole third of this page that I missed, that I didn't realize I was looking at one thing, because I've just got a single page here, and because of this border here with in the middle, I don't know that I'm supposed to be looking at all this stuff too. I mean, oh my God. And you know who's really bad about that is when Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Avon Emming were doing Powers. Oh God, they would do this kind of crap all the time, and it was terrible. They would have 2-page spreads, and you wouldn't be able to tell whether you should be reading the first page top to bottom and then move to the second page, or whether you should be reading across both pages. They wouldn't give you any clues, and usually it wasn't until you were down like 3 pages and you'd read something that you weren't supposed to read until you read all this other stuff on the other side that you found out, oh no, I've been reading it in the wrong order all along. Yeah, don't feel obligated to do that, because it's like, you know, you've got every time you break a convention, you make it harder on the reader. Because the reader now has to figure out, how do I interpret this page? How do I interpret these pages or that panel? How do I do that? Because you're throwing the rules out the door, and now the reader has to construct a separate set of rules for those pages or those panels. Okay, so it's basically Salamandroid is warning CyberFrog that Rumblebee and Pollinate are driving into Philly with a bomb. And now CyberFrog's basically got to go fix this mess, and so he gives Heather Swain a tracking bead so that he can find her just in case they get separated or something, because she's going to basically stay at the house, or she's going to walk home, and he'll just check up on her later. So Salamandroid and CyberFrog, they both hop off. There's that giant moon in the sky again, and then now they're going to find Pollinate and Rumblebee with the explosives on a bridge, and all of a sudden we cut back to the Pine Barrens. Now this is, I mean, it's not a bad place to do a cut. I mean, I'm not gonna say that this was the wrong place to do a cut, but I mean, considering that as new readers of CyberFrog, if you're coming to this book for the first time and you haven't seen Rumblebee and Pollinate before, this would be a great time to introduce them, and then you can cut to the Pine Barrens. But the fact that we don't really have any picture of who these characters are in our minds yet, because we've never seen them before. We've never even seen them over in the montage of part 1 of the book, which is one of the things that I think was really lacking from part 1, was showing kind of a rogues gallery of CyberFrog's villains, so that we would know, like, if you mentioned Rumblebee, okay, this is Rumblebee. If you mentioned Scorpion, this is Scorpion. You know, when we don't have that information in our minds already, because this is our first encounter with CyberFrog, and you're giving us this 17-page montage of all of, you know, CyberFrog's past history, a rogues gallery panel would be nice. So that would be something to think about for part 1. But you know, here was a good place where you could have introduced Rumblebee and Pollinate at first, and instead we're jumping back over to the Pine Barrens, and you've got the Vispas descending, and they're basically laying down roots, and they're sending out their murder hornets. And now here you've got a good look at the murder hornets right here. But then the next panel, and this is where I keep talking about, you know, the focus and such. You see the humans looking, and now it's like they're this bug creature is consuming nearly the entire panel in shadow. Almost as if we haven't already seen what it looks like. I mean, we've already seen what these things look like here. Why is it that it's like one of these, oh my God, you know, here they're approaching and we're only seeing them a piece at a time. And then, of course, we see the full body of the thing as it punctures this guy and starts loading him up with junk and whatnot and starts slurping him up. And here is where we get into another one of those egregious rule breaks. You're breaking through the panel across 2 other panels. What is that doing to me as a reader? I'm going from panel here to panel here. I'm seeing this. It's taking me back up here. Now I'm going back down here, back to now to here, to here. Oh, look, there's that fucking leg again. And it's bringing me back up to here. You've got me trapped in a goddamn loop, you know, because I'm looking at this stuff and it's dragging me back into this panel. This doesn't need to freaking be here. So it's, I mean, there's so many times when I want to just say, stop showing off. All right? So the woman, she drops her cigarette, the cigarette lights a fire, and you learn a little bit about the Vizpas here. It turns out they don't like smoke very much. Okay. But then Chelsea raises herself up out of the swamp, and in the dumbest decision that could possibly have ever been made, she decides to, you know, protect this one human by destroying one particular murder hornet drone. And then she is absolutely screwed. She is absolutely screwed from that point forward. I mean, she doesn't have the equipment to deal with this. She's just revealed her position. Her one job was to stay in that freaking swamp, monitor things, and, you know, let CYBERFROG deal the damage. And now all of that's going to screw up just because she couldn't let a couple of humans die. I just feel like, really? You know, I don't expect somebody who is getting on CYBERFROG's case to be like, you know, you need to protect these humans and you're here for this particular mission. I mean, she really has the one job. So why did she blow it so badly right here? I mean, it's almost like it feels almost like that scene at the beginning of The Last Jedi where Poe Dameron basically says, "Okay, we're going to take on the Dreadnought," and Leia is saying, "No, you're not going to take on the Dreadnought," and he's like, "No, we're going to take on the Dreadnought," and he takes them all off to take on the Dreadnought, and I'm thinking, who's the general here? Why can't she just countermand his order? You know, why is it she's letting him go ahead with all this kind of stuff? It's one of those just logical things, like, she's the general in charge here. Like, why is she making the big mistake? But anyway, so now you have the human girl. She gets caught by one of the murder hornets. She's getting eaten. And here is something that I found a little bit irritating, among all the other irritating things. Now you've got repeated dialogue from part 1, where Chelsea is talking about what the Vizpas will do to humanity when the Vizpas get there. And you have just word for word repetition. The Vizpas will see them as livestock, a food source. Their drained and empty bodies will be recycled for nesting material. I mean, it's just word for word copied, while this human is undergoing the draining and very gross process and stuff like that. But you don't just repeat the prophecy. I don't know. This kind of reminds me of those sections in the New Testament where you show, or where it's depicted, here's something that happened, and then, like in the Gospel of Matthew, it'll go back and it'll say, you know, and this is what it was meant when we said this and this and this and this. But here is where you could really add some new information and say, in some sort of pseudo-scientific manner, this is the process that she's undergoing as her body breaks down to become their food. You know, instead of just repeating the same stuff, you can actually add more content to what it is that we're seeing here by giving us a breakdown of the pseudoscience behind it. Okay, folks, we're going to actually stop the video here, and the reason is, number one, it's running kind of long. Number two, I found 3 things when I was rewatching the video that I wanted to redo and or at least update, because there were a couple of things that I either missed, messed up, or totally overlooked, and I want to make sure I don't do that. So in this particular sequence, first and foremost, this sequence where you have the 3 panels with the frog jumping into the lake, and then you have the 3 panels with the frog swimming into the lake. Now, my complaint here at this point was that these 2 silent panels break the momentum, and they do, but there's actually an easy way to fix this, and that's to take this little dialogue balloon here and make it overlap on these 2 panels. And that way you're having the reader's eyes read cleanly from here to here and then to here, and so you're also following the path of the frog at the same time. So that would have been an easy fix, to just move this dialogue balloon from there to there so that there's some continuity of momentum in what the reader's following and reading, instead of just having this gap of 2 silent panels. So that was number 1. Number 2, I goofed up when I was showing you the flow of how my eyes were going in this panel with the breakage here. And the reason being is because when I'm looking at the video, as I'm recording it, everything is reversed. Like my hat, you know, the lettering is reversed, and I didn't realize that I was looking at a reverse panel. So actually, when my eyes are going, they're going from this panel here to this panel, but then this leg brings me back up to that panel. And then I realize, oh, no, shit, I need to just stay here, and then I need to go here, but then, uh-oh, now I've got this leg that draws me up here again, and then finally I realize, oh, no, shit, you know, I'm supposed to be reading from here to here to here to here. You know, so I'm still having a problem, but it's not the loop that I was showing earlier. That was just a mistake on my part because of the reversal of the screen. The last part is, I just want to show how important it is not to emphasize the wrong thing on a page, because this page is done for effect, where you don't see her face, and then finally when you see her face, it's like, blah, 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 blah. And your eyes are drawn mainly to that. Do you know that I've read this page 5 or 6 times by now, and I never noticed even once the presence of Visba's larvae? I never saw them, because my eyes were continually being drawn to this thing on the page, as if that was really the most important thing, as opposed to the insects, you know, feeding off the blood that she was giving off. And it just kind of reminds me, I used to do some comics myself, and in one of them, the artist came back with a page that I really would have loved to have sent back for rework if I had that opportunity. But it was one where I had basically deliberately specified, you have a rodent on the road, and then the rodent's ears prick up, and then it gets run over by something, but you can't see what it is really, and then the final 2/3 of the page show the hovercraft that had just run over the rodent. And instead of getting that, I got a page where you had a picture of a small rodent, and then you had this insanely detailed picture of a rodent that was like all covering the middle of the page, the middle like 1/3 down of the page, in insane detail, as if the artist was just completely showing off what he could do. And then a small panel where the rodent's ears, or the rodent gets, you know, wiped out by the hovercraft, and then the whole hovercraft was like relegated down to the lower 1/3 of the page because he had used up so much room doing the detailed rodent in the center panel. It's like, no, you absolutely took the focus off where everything, where the thing should have been. And on this particular page, I mean, yeah, it's a nice gross out page. It's a nice setup and all that. But really, the thing is, you're setting it up for the Visba's larva, and the Visba's larva get completely drowned out by this. I mean, your eyes just keep focusing on this, and you're kind of like, yeah, toward the rest of it. So, you know, having some balance on the page where you're basically saying, okay, you know, I want to show the whole sequence and of the blood starting to seep out of her, and then, you know, the larvae coming and drinking it up. It's just there's too much weight on the seepy face at this point. So I'm actually gonna leave it there and do a separate video for the rest of the comic, because otherwise it's just gonna be a 40-minute video, and I don't think anybody's got the patience for that, including me. So I'm Mike Partika. Thanks for watching. Do subscribe so that you'll be notified when that second review video comes out, and I will talk to you later.